Hello and welcome, I'm Stormo, of course, and we're going to play some Assassin's Creed Origins Explorer mode, because I want to have a look at this mode. I'm not sure how long I'm going to stick into it. I'm not sure how long we're going to stick with it, is probably a better way to say that, but yeah, it just seemed like a really nice mode. Let me just adjust my microphone for a second, guys, it's just hanging a bit wonky here. There we go. There we go, sorry about that. Just had to get that happen. Okay. So this was a free update for Assassin's Creed Origins that came out the other night. In fact, I think I was playing Horizon Zero Dawn when the update actually installed. And I didn't realise at the time what it was. Yeah, here we go. Experience the Discovery Tour. Okay, so we'll have a look at that, and we'll certainly... So this is the mode we're going into. I'm not sure how far into this game I am at the moment. Actually, I think I'm not even halfway. But I've sort of gotten into Monster Hunter World and doing Horizon Zero Dawn here. I haven't been able to quite have a look at it, but we're going to dive into Discovery Tour. What I know about this mode is basically that there's no combat and no quests. You just sort of explore the game worlds at your own leisure, and it's got yeah, guided tours of places and stuff like that. So we'll have a look at it, because I am really curious about what this is. I do know one thing about this, it's been a bit controversial today, which is that a lot of the statues have been censored in this mode. They've had seashells placed strategically on them, and quite a few people have been, well, I haven't seen anyone out and out upset about it, but people have sort of been a bit bemused by the decision to do that, given these are historical statues, and of course, as we all know, there's a lot of classic historical statues that are quite naked and quite detailed in their nudity. So anyway, but yeah, with regards to that, just check this. There we go. But yeah, with regards to that, Jesus, it takes a while to load. The suggestion I've seen is that because this is intended in as an educational tool as much as anything else, and because it's likely to get used in school environments, which is kind of what Ubisoft's, I guess, goal with this mode is. And yeah, here you go. So, content curated by Egyptologists and hundreds of images sourced from museums and libraries around the world. We hope to share with you the passion that inhabited us for the 4 years it took to develop Assassin's Creed Origins. Wow, this game was in development for 4 years. That means it would have been well under development when Syndicate came out.
Welcome to Discovery Tour by Assassin's Creed, Ancient Egypt.
Wow, we're really going the documentary feel here. Okay, that's cool. Guided tours will take you through majestic landmarks and acquaint you with ancient Egyptians and their culture. And I think the Assassin's Creed series, this is a feature I would have loved in some of the older Assassin's Creed games. I mean, could you imagine doing this with Assassin's Creed 2? Being able to explore Venice at that time, navigate a boat along the banks of the River Nile, or ride a horse across deserts and lush fertile lands. Yeah. But yeah, could you imagine doing this with... and whenever you truly take pictures using the photo mode and share it with your friends. Okay, so yeah, no, cool. And of course, one of the neat things the main game has online is the ability to take screenshots and share them when you look at the map in the main game. We hope you enjoyed this experience. Well, I hope to as well. It's always really interesting too, because, like I said, there's no quests or combat. We can just go anywhere, and I'm someone who, personally, I really love exploration in games. I think I've talked about this doing Horizon Zero Dawn, where I really, really enjoy the exploration in the games. Oh, hello. Use yeah, I know how to play the game. Okay. So this will be the tour. Let's, I guess this is going to be a tutorial mode as well, so let's,
Welcome to Alexandria, planning of the city.
Okay. Oh, I see how
Alexander's
this works.
plan to build his great city began with a verse from Homer's Odyssey. There is, in front of Egypt, in the sea with many swells, an island called Pharos. Guided by these clues, Alexander the Great founded his future city at the western end of the Nile Delta.
Okay. Okay, once you've done that, you can either go for more info or back down here. Okay. So this is going to be quite a different experience, I guess, because
Though Alexander considered this
all this is
location
happening.
ideal for his great city, it presented considerable
Oh, and
challenges.
there's... Okay.
Too difficult to access during storms, the surrounding swamps threatened disease, and the limestone soil prevented the growth of healthy crops. However, due to the influence of his mentor Aristotle, Alexander the Great recognized that the true value was its strategic emplacement. Alexander knew that in controlling Pelusium to the east, Memphis to the south, and his crowning glory Alexandria to the west, he would create a triangular stronghold, allowing him to control the entire delta while giving him access to the Mediterranean.
Oh, okay, no. Okay, so that's what the X would have done. Yeah. Oh, and this is one of the photos. Obviously, this is a... okay, so this is apparently a recent photo, 2004 it says there, with the area we're looking at highlighted. Okay, cool. Cool. And you can obviously re-interact with any of the points you've previously been. So that's really neat. What was I going to say just before? Yeah, I was saying before, I really like exploration in games. So a mode in a game that is almost entirely exploration-based is really going to grab my attention.
The Great Walls of Alexandria had a humble beginning. Lacking chalk to outline the future city's foundations, architects were forced to use flour instead. Clouds of migrating birds swept down and ate the flour, erasing the plans. This prompted Alexander to seek guidance from the oracles, who reassured him that his future city was destined to feed a large population.
Okay, so this is obviously, yeah, okay, in the 18th dynasty. Wow.
Excavations led by Mahmud Bey el-Falaki in the 19th century revealed that the wall enclosure measured approximately 5.2 kilometers in length and 2.2 kilometers in width. It was roughly 9 meters in height.
It is quite big, and it is impressive in the game how big it is. But yeah, like I was saying before, imagine doing this in Venice or even in Victorian England, for the Victorian England Syndicate, or in fact, for that matter.
These formidable ancient walls would resist a number of attacks, including fending off the king of Syria in 169 BCE. It wasn't until 295 CE that they eventually fell to Roman Emperor Diocletian, and this only after 8 months of relentless assault.
Let me know, by the way, if I go too fast with any of these, let me know, or if you want to see the picture or something like that, feel free to let me know. But yeah, I think we could do this all night. This is... fun's a strange word, but I'm enjoying this. Okay, and we can actually, if we want, we can just hop on a horse. I think this is fairly short, so I'm going to stay off that, but obviously that's an option if we want it. Also, these points are
Alexandria's
automatic.
principal architect, Dinocrates, chose a Hippodamian grid plan. The grid maximized functionality, with wide, straight roads and canals running beneath them. Alexander recognized the military value of the city's design. The wide, parallel streets gave him optimal surveillance of the city, while allowing the unobstructed flow of troops.
God, I love looking at pictures like this. I love a good map. And these are all areas, obviously, you go in the game. This is the... I'm pointing at the screen here, so... but you can see on what would be... man. Well, you can see in the middle, you got the big amphitheater area there, which you do go to that in the game. There is an area there, and then you've got the palace area, or is it the library over there? The palace, and then you've got, I think it's the armory on the other side there. But yeah. So you got all that.
A central corridor ran from the Mediterranean's north port down to Lake Mareotis to the south. This thoroughfare acted as an unobstructed link for commercial trade and travel between the two ports. Many of the streets were bordered with grand buildings and parks, including Canopic Street, with its impressive gate bordering the eastern end.
So take a look at that picture. So this is an image from 1995, drawn in 1995. Yeah, and you can really see... I'm guessing a lot of these images that we're seeing here are part of the materials they used as research for the game while they were developing it too. This is what they came across as well while they were developing it.
Alexandria was most likely built upon an already existing Egyptian village. Upon its completion, the Egyptians reviled the city, refusing to call it by its founder's name. Instead, they called it Raked, the building, as a mark of disdain, which was later Hellenized into Rakotis. Despite this, the name Alexandria would remain.
I was going to say, it's still called Alexandria today, so we know which one of those names stuck. Yeah. Oh, okay, this is actually concept art. Yeah, okay, I get it. Yeah. So this is, you can see up the top there, art by Martin Deschambault of Ubisoft. So that would have been concept art for the game. There we go, we beat the tour. Okay. Cool. I even got a trophy. Ah, right, and there's so these are the tours that are available to us. We've done that one. And then there's these ones around. And then there's okay. So there is quite a lot of structure to this mode. Like, even though it says there's no quest, you've obviously got these tours which I guess work in place of quests. There's a whole bunch of pyramid tours. Oh, this is great. Oh, I could get really into this. Oh, where should we go from here, though? I'll have a think about it for the moment. I guess at the moment we're still kind of tutorialing around, so I do want to, for the moment, just have a bit of a run around. See what we can see, but obviously the tours are the main thing. I wonder if it's possible to use this to sort of pre-explore an area and then go to it in the game and just blast your way through it. You can probably do that actually with this mode. So that's neat. Interestingly, I have my sneak mode still. But of course the tours... right, okay, so the tours pop up here too, so wherever I'm wandering around, I can either... I'm guessing if I... Oh, okay, so the map will show me where the tours are. And I can just work my way towards whichever one I want. And obviously the menu, I guess, just waypoints you to a particular tour, so if I wanted to... Oh, we already did that one. Oh, no, we didn't. We actually did this. No, okay. Ah, okay, and that lets you fast travel to the start of a tour. Right, I didn't see that. Okay, that's cool. That's neat. Hey, yeah, we're exploring Assassin's Creed. This is great. Let's, the Serapeon of Alexandria. Okay, we'll do this one. This is 4 minutes, so we'll start this tour.
Welcome to
changes
the
the time of day.
Serapeon of Alexandria.
Or is this a different narrator? Okay, let's go up here. Station 1.
In a city of numerous magnificent attractions, the Serapeon was considered to be the most beautiful temple of Alexandria. Located southwest of the city, on a small hill known as the Acropolis, the sanctuary was constructed during the reign of Ptolemy III, upon foundations which had existed since the reign of Ptolemy I Soter.
Okay, so this is an area you go to in the game. It's a temple, from memory, and you actually do get a couple of quests here, and there's a papyrus here in the main game.
Visitors of the Serapeon climbed 100 steps to reach the courtyard. Libraries were installed in the porticos surrounding the square building, with its roof and columns adorned with gold and gilded bronze. Pharaohs were generous to the temple, as were several Roman emperors after Egypt's conquest. An inner temple housed the statue of Serapis, dedicated to healing the sick.
Yeah, and so yeah, this area it's not as major a quest hub as the temple you go to earlier in the game, but it is still
Since
there.
the 26th dynasty,
Look at
Greeks
that.
in Egypt had gradually integrated the Egyptian cult of the Apis bull to their own rituals. With the establishment of the Ptolemaic dynasty, the cult of Apis was further integrated into Greek religion. During his rule, Ptolemy I chose to merge Egyptian and Hellenic gods into a syncretic divinity named Serapis. This name was the result of the amalgamation of Osiris and Apis. With this new deity, the Ptolemaic dynasty managed to accommodate similar belief sets for two different cultures, bringing about a new dynastic cult.
And obviously that photo is what this statue was based on. This is super cool. See, you come to Twitch, you can get educated.
Serapis was also associated to other deities, including Asclepius, a Greek god of healing. It is possible that, as with the Serapis Temple of Canopus, the sick would visit this sanctuary, sleeping there overnight in the hopes of being healed within its hallowed halls.
Pardon me. Oh, pardon me. And yeah, this is another of these. There we go. So that's the Serapion, which we do come to. Like I said, we do come to a fair bit in the game. So that's really cool. How about, though, we head out of Alexandria. Don't need to go that way. Might head out of Alexandria and see what's around the other area. I mean, there's a lot in Alexandria as it is. But I suppose if we really want to do one of these tours, we all want to look at the pyramids, don't we? Feel like the pyramids might be where we should go. So what we'll do is we'll head to... we'll try and do at least one tour in each of these categories. Okay, that seems like a good place to start. So we'll fast travel to there. And that should take us to the pyramids. And we'll have a look there. Oh, wow. See these hints? These hints are also all there. Also, I just realized I was going to make an adjustment to my stream tonight that I completely forgot to make. So if the stream is lagging or breaking up, that'll be why, and I'm sorry about that. I know what the problem is, and I meant to fix it before I started, but I had a different computer problem before I started tonight, and it messed up. So yeah, if it is lagging a bit, just let me know, and I might even stop the stream and restart it, just to get that to happen. Yep, okay, we'll do this tour.
Welcome to the major regions of Egypt.
This tour requires a boat, so let's mount a boat. Whoa, 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 whoa. Boat, please.
Life in ancient Egypt was concentrated along the shores of the Nile and divided into two regions. Lower Egypt was situated on the Nile Delta near the Mediterranean, and Upper Egypt was at the south reaching into Africa. Due to its proximity to the Mediterranean, temperatures in Lower Egypt were less extreme than in Upper Egypt.
Yeah, that makes sense. But yeah, you can see just looking at that what a narrow strip of land the Egyptians actually really lived along. I mean, they did expand out to that desert, obviously, but that's what I want. They did expand out into the desert areas, but much of the population lived right along that narrow strip where the Nile was. I remember learning that in high school.
Until 3100 BCE and the unification of Egypt, each region had its own pharaoh and crown.
Yep.
Lower Egypt's crown was red and marked with symbols of papyrus and bees. Upper Egypt's crown was white with symbols of lotus and sedge grass.
Sorry. Sorry.
Both regions had competing major cities, most notably Memphis in Lower Egypt and Thebes in Upper Egypt. There were different religious cults in both regions, each worshipping their own major gods.
Ah, whoops. I was going to show that and then hide the text. So that's part of Memphis. Memphis is in the game. You actually do go there. So that's cool. Oh, man. Hang on. Got to back away. Don't want to bump into the poor guy. There might not be any combat, but I still knocked that guy off his boat. Let's go this way. Where is it? There it is.
Many of the temples were designed in such a way as to represent the two regions, and ceremonies often incorporated Upper and Lower Egypt in their rituals.
Yeah. I'll take a look at that. So what's that? That is a perfume burner with unified Egypt knot. Cool. That's that tour complete, so I might head towards land over there. But we were going to look at the pyramids. Instead we start... Whoops. Well, I can just get off here, I guess. There we go, up there. Let's take a look at where the next tour here is. Oh, that was in Egypt. I was going to look at the pyramids. Okay. Well, we'll start with this one. So, fast traveling over to the pyramid areas now. But yeah, notice how the hints for this are actually not gameplay hints at all. They're actually all, again, little historical facts. Okay, here we are. So I have done parts of the game. I've been into, I think, that pyramid there.
My kingdom for a glass of water.
Sure. Yep. Let's start the pyramids.
Welcome to the origin of the pyramid. The origin of the word pyramid is controversial. Most believe that it originates with the Greek word pyramis, which referred to a bread of conical shape. Life and death in ancient Egypt were modeled on the cycle of the sun. The perfect shape of the smooth-faced pyramid became associated with the metaphor of the pharaoh transformed into one of the sun's rays in death. Pyramids represented the Benben, the primordial mound of the Heliopolitan creation myth. These stories permeated every aspect of Egyptian life to a greater or lesser extent.
Okay. You actually have a moderate boss fight in this area in the main game.
During the pre-dynastic period, the development of funerary practices was different depending on whether one was located in Lower Egypt or Upper Egypt. Well before the pyramid, there was the burial pits. It is on the site of Merimde Beni Salome in Lower Egypt that we find the oldest funerary site, dating back to 5000 BCE. Study of the tombs revealed that the bodies of the deceased were deposited in a shallow grave, in a fetal position. Though a few objects were recovered from these graves, they offered no insight as to the social class of those interred within.
Okay. The good part is we can Assassin's Creed our way around here.
In Upper Egypt, pre-dynastic practices are easier to study, but reveal more complex funerary rites. They are divided into two cultural phases, Badarian and Nagata. The Badarian phase ranged from 4400 BCE to 3800 BCE. Small necropolises were discovered on the outskirts of villages, revealing the emergence of a funerary cult. The bodies of the deceased were lowered into an oval grave and covered with goat or gazelle skins. Items needed in everyday life were added alongside the body.
One thing that you really get across as you look at this is just how ancient these things are, or at least aspects of these things are. Like, there's a part of the game where you play, and I'll
During the
explain
three
after this.
Nagata periods ranging from 4000 BCE to 3510 BCE, funerary practices evolved in complexity. The shape of tombs changed from oval to rectangular, mimicking the homes of the living. The size of the burials increased and funerary items became more stylized and numerous. Tombs gained complexity with masonry, wooden veneers, or raw bricks added to strengthen the structures. In time, socially stratified necropolises emerged. For example, in Hyrcanopolis, the elite and commoners had separate necropolises.
But yeah, there's a point in the game where there's a comment made about something being incredibly ancient, and you sort of realize that the setting of Assassin's Creed, which is I think about 44 to 50 BC or 50 to 44 BC or thereabouts around then. So the setting of Assassin's Creed is actually closer to the present day than when some of these pyramids and other structures that you see in the game were built to the time of Assassin's Creed. Like, just then we were talking about, these practices going back to 4400 BCE. That's 4,000 years before the time Assassin's Creed happened, and that's 2,000 years ago. So it's just incredible how much time there is.
The term
From there
mastaba,
to there.
meaning massive bench in dialectal Arabic, refers to a form of funerary architecture that was present in Egypt from the Archaic period to the Middle Kingdom. An evolution of the burial pit, mastabas were generally composed of two parts. A structure was built above the ground in the form of a massive rectangle with stepped walls, and a subterranean burial chamber was located underneath. Smaller mastabas often surrounded the much larger tomb of the king. These generally held the remains of the king's relatives and courtiers.
Now we're going inside one.
The arrangement of the substructure of the mastaba evolved during the course of the Old Kingdom. From the 5th dynasty onwards, mastabas often featured multi-roomed substructures, with sometimes up to 30 rooms. Also, the quantity and quality of decorated surfaces increased noticeably, as well as the number of statues found within.
So yeah, this is model of the mastaba tomb of Perneb. Cool. And I'm guessing that's probably what this particular one is based on, if it's not that actual one. Oh, just went straight to a picture.
The 6th dynasty would see art used to its utmost. The entire surface of a mastaba would be covered in scenes of daily life, illustrating the prosperity of those lucky enough to comfortably spend eternity near the pyramid of a pharaoh. The best example of this type of mastaba is the tomb of Mereruka in Saqqara.
Which I'm guessing is what this picture is. So that's, again, from 5th dynasty. Okay, so that's that out. Can I AC my way out of here? I can. That's the nice thing about all of this, is that you can just sort of Assassin's Creed your way around. So if I take a look at the map, we should be able to see where the other tours are nearby. So that's one we've done there. Well, I suppose the next thing to do is, what's the next tour on our list? Step Pyramid Complex of Doja. Oh gee, that's a big one. Okay, well we'll... Is that near here? No, that's Sakara Nome is miles away, isn't it? Because where's Sakara Nome? Is there any gear? Ah, Sakara Nome is down there. Right, okay. So it's a fair hike from here to there if we want to do that one. What about that? What's that tour? Great Pyramid of Giza, Upper Chambers. I think we should have a look at these three. Feel like that might be what everyone wants to see. So we'll start. Okay, what I'm going to do is just check what the ordering of those is. So we'll see how we go there. But yeah, so that was... Okay, so this is the Great Pyramids. Secret of the Great Pyramid. Okay, so this is what we're looking at here. So Secret of the Great Pyramid should be the first one, then Subterranean, Upper, and Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories. So where's Secrets of the Great Pyramid? Is that one there? That is that one there. Well, fast travel, we'll do that one. I could have just picked it off the menu, couldn't I? Okay, let's have a look at the Great Pyramid. It's what we all came here for, isn't it? Yep, let's start this one.
Welcome to Secrets of the Great Pyramid. Built around 2550 BCE, the Great Pyramid of Giza is considered one of the most iconic structures of Egypt. It is the biggest of the pyramids, and the only one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world still standing. The numbers associated to the Great Pyramid of Giza are impressive. A workforce of over 20,000 people, 6 million tons of stone, and 20 years of construction. It was a massive undertaking for a pharaoh's tomb.
So this is really interesting, because this is obviously a modern picture of what the pyramid looks like these days, or at least in recent times. And you'll notice when I go back to the game, so you just take a look there, and you'll notice when I go back to the game, so you can see all the bricks and everything like that, and when I go back to the game you can see that none of that's really visible. Also, you'll notice again that this pyramid was older at the time, was built further away from the time this game takes place to when this game takes place to now by about 500 years. So again, just to give you an idea of just how incredibly ancient these things are.
The construction of the Great Pyramid was also a display of power and opulence on the part of Khufu. It is part of the pharaoh's vast funerary complex, which also includes 2 temples, 3 satellite pyramids, a causeway, and a builder's necropolis. We can guess that the intent behind the construction of these monuments was Khufu's way of declaring himself one of the most powerful pharaohs to rule a unified Egypt.
So yeah, and again you can see, it's a pity you don't really have a pointer you can use on these images. But you can see the big causeway running down the middle of the map there, and the 3 smaller pyramids and all that stuff there. I've never been to Egypt, so I don't know what the current state of any of this is. So I've only got this game to go on myself.
New insights into engineering and ancient Egyptian culture are still being revealed over 4,500 years later. For example, a recently unearthed papyrus offers a glimpse into the life of a tradesman at the time of the pyramid's construction. Also, a logbook belonging to a team leader during the building gives details on the craftsmen, their work schedules, and the raw materials required.
Geez, that's really amazing that some of that stuff has existed for that long, and we're able to see it today. Like, the fact that they were able to just find that recently is really incredible.
It is interesting to note that by Cleopatra's time, the pyramid's celestial purpose, its construction, and the function of its mysterious inner chambers was already unclear. Today, it is only through dedicated research that we have begun to grasp some of the Great Pyramid's mysteries.
Yeah, and again, like I was saying, like, these pyramids were ancient then, so it's not surprising, and especially at a time when, you know, they don't have access to, like, the almost infinite amounts of knowledge we have access to today. Back then, you really had to dedicate yourself to studying this, and of course, nobody did. Or, I mean, such a small amount of people did, and they were often such highly valued people that the knowledge wasn't general.
The Egyptians had polished their design for centuries by the time work on the Great Pyramid began. Intended as a tomb for Khufu, the Great Pyramid's structural design has been considered to be nearly perfect by engineers and historians ever since.
And I mean, you can see that even here, just looking at it. Obviously, this is a statuette of Khufu. But you can see that here. You can see how perfect these lines are down the side and everything like that. I mean, it actually looks better here than it does today, obviously, because it's got that cladding that it doesn't have
Precisely
anymore.
oriented north-south to the 4 cardinal points of a compass, the length of each side of the Great Pyramid at its base was 230 meters, and its original height was 147 meters. The pyramid is a mere 0.05% error away from being a perfect square.
See, that is truly phenomenal, because remember, of course, they didn't have the kind of tools you need to build that accurately. They would have had to math that out by hand, and it would have taken some pretty solid engineering work to come up with that and get it so close to being right.
In order to achieve the shape of a true pyramid, the design required many considerations in the planning phases as well as precision during execution. It was especially critical that they control the angle of inclination on all sides at every stage of construction.
Yeah, I mean, these sides, you can see, if I just run up here, you can see how smooth and flat they are. And obviously, we're looking at a video game rendered version of the real thing, but it is based on our historical knowledge of what that was.
Materials for the Great Pyramid consisted of quarried limestone blocks, weighing between 2 to 15 tons each. The methods of moving these blocks into place is still debated by architects and Egyptologists. The precision of its design in an age with only soft metal tools, as well as the enormous scale of its construction, make the Great Pyramid one of the most impressive feats of human engineering.
And it really is. It is definitely a place I'd love to go see in real life. And coming here in the game, like the first time I came here in the game, because it is something you do a bunch of quests sort of over that way in the game, and this pyramid's sort of hanging over the background, but you don't really get a sense of just how huge it is until you are standing. Like, if I go here, obviously we can, this is Assassin's Creed, so we can Assassin's Creed, but you can see, like, I'm standing next to one of these stones, so this stone's, you know, about the same height, about the same size as me in terms of height, and it just goes up, and boy.
It's estimated that it took between 600,000 and 2 million blocks of stone to build the Great Pyramid. Experts calculate it would have required men to move 12 blocks every hour around the clock for 20 years to place the 2.3 million stones the monument is made of.
I mean, that's phenomenal. I mean, if you wanted to do this today, you know, you've got modern construction tools and all that kind of stuff. You've got cranes and all kinds of stuff. You'd probably build something like this in 6 months, but I guarantee it wouldn't be built to this standard. I like that. It's got a little prompt there letting you know that you should climb up here.
While the interior chambers were built with red granite from Aswan, most of the pyramid was made from local limestone, weighing between 2 to 15 tons per block. There is debate on how the pyramid stones were moved into place. Recent research is exploring the idea that it was built around a large interior ramp.
Okay. So that's information I never knew. It's interesting that they would do that. It makes sense, I guess, because, like...
The recently discovered logbook confirms that the high-quality limestone of the outer casing was brought by boat across the Nile from a quarry in Tura. Once complete, the smooth white polished stone of the Great Pyramid would have reflected the sunlight like a beacon, earning it the name the Horizon of Khufu.
Yeah, yeah. And see, that polished stone is what's not there anymore. If you go to the pyramid today, none of that stands there anymore.
Over the centuries, thieves and travelers attempted to access the Great Pyramid numerous times. Ancient writings describe details of its interior, proof that some made their way within, though who gained entrance first and when is unknown.
And of course, this is the other thing. I mean, this thing stood for so long, and again, even by the time of when this game was set, it's been there for 2,000 years. Surely people have tried to rob it and raid it by then, you know, let alone in the 2,000 years since then.
The main entrance of the Great Pyramid is located 17 meters above ground level. It faces north, likely in order to align with the North Star. Though the entrance passageway had been discovered in antiquity, any further access into the Great Pyramid was stopped by massive vertical slabs of rock. As such, present-day visitors to the pyramid must use the robber's entrance.
Oh, back down.
The robber's entrance is reported to have been opened in the 9th century by Caliph al-Mamun. In search of treasure, the Caliph had his men dig their way inside the Great Pyramid. The most likely scenario is that they enlarged a corridor which had been created by tomb robbers during antiquity. As such, this is how the team can justify access to this wonder.
Okay. Oh, okay, yeah, I was just wondering, like, it popped out that little behind-the-scenes thing there, and so I figured that's, when I say the team, I mean the game's development team, like, how did the game's developers justify that access?
Attempts to gain entry to the Great Pyramid and uncover its potential secrets continued throughout the centuries. In the 19th century, the belief that another entry existed at the south side resulted in a hole being blasted into the pyramid's side, with no results for the damage that was done. While the search is still ongoing today to uncover more hidden rooms and passageways, conservation is the primary concern of all such efforts.
Yeah, those 19th century guys are idiots. And that's not even a joke, they were idiots. So I imagine that the next tour is in the pyramid. If I go, yeah, I can see one in there. And that'll be the upper chambers. So I think on the list the subterranean chambers was actually the next one. So we'll head here and see what this is. And if it's the upper chambers... I feel like doing them in the order they appeared on that list is the better option to do, so we'll do the subterranean chambers. I'll fast travel to it. We'll do that one first.
Welcome to the Great Pyramid, Subterranean Chamber. From the original entrance of the Great Pyramid, there is a passage leading to the subterranean chamber. Its walls were carved out of the existing rock of the plateau and then covered in a fine, unmarked limestone. The descending passage has a steep 26-degree downward slope. Narrow and with a low ceiling, this pathway is long and challenging.
Yeah, so that's the pathway. You can see sort of linking the other two there, forming that part of that triangle in that map. And again, this is a place you do come in the game too.
While the original passage was 145 meters long, the team reduced its length and made it both wider and higher. The main focus of the work in reproducing the location was centered upon preserving the unique claustrophobic environment of the Great Pyramid, while still allowing for a smooth game navigation.
Yeah, so these behind-the-scenes ones are just about what the developers did in the game, which is still interesting in its own way.
The well shaft was a 58-meter vertical passage that connected the descending corridor to the grand gallery above. An adjacent grotto may have originally been a small natural well in the bedrock that was enlarged during the tunneling. Whether the grotto was intended for another purpose is uncertain. There is much speculation over the purpose of the well shaft. One theory is that the channel was cut or enlarged to supply air to workers in the descending passage. Another is that it was meant to provide an exit route once the work was done in the heart of the pyramid. Without the well shaft, workers would have been trapped inside forever when the grand gallery was sealed. The opening at the bottom of the well shaft was most likely sealed by exiting workers to camouflage the passageway.
And again, it's interesting that because it's been there for so long and it's original, basically everything we know about it is just from exploring and discovering and even speculating on what could possibly be there and why it was there. And because of that, you get these ones where it's just like, well, yeah, we think this is what the well shaft was for, but nobody really knows.
There is a subterranean chamber at the end of the descending corridor, 30 meters below the Giza Plateau surface. Dug directly into the bedrock, the space is wide with a ceiling 3 meters in height. Its floors and walls are rough and uneven, indicating that it was never completed. At the south end of the room, there is another narrow corridor, similar to the others, though it abruptly ends after roughly 20 meters.
Okay, and the map's just highlighting, the peach is just highlighting where that is. And you do come here, oh wow, there's a drop there. You do come here in the game too.
The chamber also contains an 11-meter pit near the east side. It's unclear what this may have been used for. In the game, this well leads to a fictive underground complex containing key game-related mysteries.
Oh yeah, boy does it. But yeah, that's I like that they've kept that spoiler-free there, like, because the moment I saw that, I'm like, oh, hang on, are they even going to talk about that? And of course, no, they're not. And I'm not going to say anything. You not play the game, you don't know what it's talking about.
The subterranean chamber's original purpose remains a mystery. One popular theory is that it was originally meant to be Khufu's burial chamber, but the pharaoh changed his mind, preferring to be buried higher up in the pyramid, which would explain the chamber's unfinished state.
That's that tour completed. But yeah, there's a whole thing down there that I won't drop down there to show you, because it is kind of spoilerish. If I was let's playing the game, I'd have no problems with doing it, but since I'm not, it is a bit of a spoiler, so we're not going to do that. Anyway, next one on that list would have been the upper chambers. Yep, so we'll go back to that one, do that quest, do that exploration. Okay, so we're back here.
Welcome to the Great Pyramid of Giza, Upper Chambers.
We've got National Geographic guy again.
At the entrance of the ascending passage are 3 granite flagstones estimated to weigh up to 25 tons each.
Far out.
They were used to protect the Great Pyramid from thieves. Undaunted by the granite blocks, the thieves simply dug into the softer limestone around them, thus creating the robber's entrance. While in reality the robber's entrance is one single cavity which leads to both passages, in the game, the team created individual accesses to either passage. As such, in the game, one entrance leads to the ascending passage, while another leads to the descending passage.
Yeah, which explains the discrepancy you saw in that picture that I brought up just before.
The ascending passageway of the Great Pyramid provides a direct path into the Grand Gallery and is accessed 30 meters from the entrance along the descending corridor. Both corridors have similar dimensions and are designed with the same 26-degree incline. The ascending corridor has smooth masonry on its walls, and the layout includes many trapezoidal stones. Both the floor and ceiling of the passageway indicate that the passage was enlarged, possibly during or after the funeral, to allow workers room to move granite blocks meant to plug the corridor.
Okay. Oh, we've got to go down there and back around. Okay, cool.
The Grand Gallery's purpose is still debated among experts. It may have been intended to align with the stars, act as a buffer to protect the King's Chamber, or simply to facilitate the transport of the granite blocks used inside the pyramid. Access to the Queen's Chamber was at the beginning of the Grand Gallery.
So I'm guessing that's what that is there. So follow the pathway along here. Yep. Again, the game's got to tell you. Oh boy, this will take forever. Wow. You move really slowly when you're crouching. You don't move that slowly in the game.
Though this room is referred to as the Queen's Chamber, it is believed that there was no queen buried here. Based on their knowledge of earlier pyramids, Egyptologists believe it was more likely intended as the king's serdab, a chamber meant to contain the Ka statue, which would in turn house the king's spirit. Situated exactly within the pyramid's center, on the east-west axis of the pyramid, the chamber has a vaulted ceiling and measures 5.7 by 5.2 meters. In the eastern wall, there is a niche tucked away in a small corbelled archway, which may have originally held the Ka statue. Behind this niche is another smaller hole, possibly dug out by thieves in search of further treasure.
Yeah, so that's it there. You can't actually get in there in the game at all as far as I'm aware. I remember seeing that hole and thinking, hey, why can't I go there? And it turns out you just can't. But that explains why, I guess.
In the 19th century, two shafts were found running through the north and south walls. They each run in a horizontal line for 2 meters before sloping upward, and both are closed off with limestone blocks fitted with copper handles. Whether they were intended as ventilation shafts for workers or a celestial connection for the pharaoh's spirit is unconfirmed.
Oh, there you go. So that's one. There should be one. Yeah, you can see it just there.
A recent scan of the room indicated the presence of an unknown cavity hidden behind the north face of the walls over the descending corridor. Further investigation is still ongoing to ascertain the nature of the anomaly, so as to avoid risking damage to the monument.
That's the really fascinating thing I find with these pyramids, is that all these years later, like, you know, thousands of years later, they're still discovering bits of them. You know, I mean, these things have stood for 6,000 years, just about, some of them all. 2,500, so... Okay, this one stood for about 4,500 years at this point. And, like, we still don't know everything about its internals, which is just phenomenal when you think about it.
Khufu's architects were possibly influenced by earlier rhomboidal pyramids when designing the gallery. It is the longest corbelled vault ever built, measuring 47 meters long and 8.6 meters high. The walls were made to taper inward, allowing for better distribution of weight. As a result, the ceiling measures just over a meter wide at its highest point. Though this construction technique is present in other pyramids, few have the same precision and stability.
Oh, there you go.
While the space is visually dramatic, the gallery seemed to serve a practical function, though what exactly remains uncertain. Still, the wall design was undoubtedly meant to contribute to the stability of the structure, and its floor may have helped workers move the materials. A channel runs along the middle of the room. A movable floor originally rested in this central recess. The raised benches on either side are equipped with slots that may have been used to help position the granite blocking stones. At the end of the Grand Gallery is the entrance to the antechamber leading to the King's Chamber. Directly above, there is another narrower horizontal passage that connects to the top of the King's Chamber and allow the workers access to the weight relief rooms.
So directly above, is that referring... Well, what's that referring to? Is that something... Oh, right, okay, yeah.
The far end of the Grand Gallery leads to a small antechamber with a portcullis, preventing access to the King's Chamber. The portcullis was composed of 3 separate granite slabs. They were designed to be lowered into place and seal the chamber after the burial of the king. The grooves dug out to hold the slabs in place are still clearly visible to this day. The elaborate locking system was composed of a series of grooves for the ropes and pulleys that dropped the stones into place like the notches on a key.
They really, really didn't want anyone getting in here. Oops. Oh no. I hit the wrong button. I like that you can still Assassin's Creed things though.
For the purposes of the game, the team elected to remove the portcullis slabs in order to grant the player access to the King's Chamber. In reality, workers would have backed out of the room after the funeral, lowering each slab into place behind them one at a time. Each of the 3 stones were smashed by looters centuries later, and evidence of their break-in is still evident. The King's Chamber is built entirely out of red granite. The King's Chamber measures 5.8 meters in height. It has an imposing cover of 5 stacked levels above, with granite beams weighing 25 to 40 tons each. The uppermost level is surmounted by a vault of stones, arranged in chevrons to bear the enormous structural load.
Yeah, you can sort of see that there. So, the portcullis room would have been in that narrow passage. And as I said, the game doesn't have that room in it at all.
As in the Queen's Chamber, 2 shafts extend out from the room towards the north and south faces of the pyramid. They measure nearly 64 meters until they are blocked by copper-handled granite plugs. Some experts in the culture of the Old Kingdom believe that the shafts were thought to lead the king's soul to the stars, with the incarnation of the pharaoh as the god Ra, represented by the northern well, and the god Horus by the southern well.
So yeah, again, you've got those shafts there.
There is a granite sarcophagus at the west end of the room. But it is the concealed construction inscriptions left by workmen on the roof's stones which verify this as the resting place of Khufu. The sarcophagus was recorded as being empty when it was discovered, and its design indicates that there was once a lid in place. It's possible that this sarcophagus is only a cenotaph in memory of the pharaoh, but was never actually meant to receive the body.
So essentially they built this entire thing and then didn't put the king in it. Okay, and that looks like it's... yeah, hieroglyphics written out. So those must be the hieroglyphs they're talking about on the roof up there, which you can't really see in the game here.
Khufu's mummy was never found. It is hoped that as of yet undiscovered hidden rooms and shafts of the pyramid may provide an answer as to its location.
Well, there you go. And we've got another tool right there, I think. Yeah, so this is Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories. And we'll do this one as well.
Welcome to Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories.
Okay. Guess we're going through here first.
The team wanted to provide players with a sense of exploration and discovery, particularly within the Great Pyramid. As such, a decision was made that the internal design of the monument in the game would reflect Jean-Pierre Houdin's theories. While the antechambers of the King's Tomb have yet to be discovered, Houdin posits that this is merely due to a unique design, placing the pharaoh's tomb at the center of the pyramid. The entire tour you are about to take was designed along Houdin's hypotheses.
Okay, so what we're about to see, I guess, isn't really, or may or may not really be there. It's just theory. But of course, you do come across this area in the game, you're like, wow, there's all this treasure here. Surely that's a bit weird that's all still there. But yeah, obviously this is not based on... This is based on... And again, it comes back to just how little we really know about these pyramids and how much there's still left to discover with them. That they can put this in the game, make it seem entirely plausible, but yet it's really just based on these theories. And I mean, that's fine.
While respecting Houdin's hypothesis as to the general layout of the antechambers, the team wanted the contents to enhance the game experience. In regular royal tombs, the antechambers were filled with all the material goods needed by the pharaoh in the afterlife. To support the feelings of discovery and awe, the art team created a unique and fantastical treasure in this second antechamber.
Yeah, that's right, because you do get... well, you have this that you interact with, and then you get something out of the sarcophagus, or I guess treasure chest there. Oh, she moves so slowly at the start of this crouch, it's really strange.
Houdin theorized that the ascending corridor and the Great Gallery were used by the workers to haul hoist the heavy beams above the king's chamber. He called it the service circuit. The corridor you are in now was created by the team following Houdin's theory and is referred to as the noble circuit. It is through this corridor that the wooden sarcophagus containing the pharaoh's mummy would have been transported to its final resting chamber.
Yeah, and again, you sort of Assassin's Creed your way through here.
With this structure in mind, one can easily assume that the pyramid's entrance would have been connected to the two antechambers. Modern research has revealed that a cavity might be located behind the north face chevrons of the pyramid. As such, the team chose to create this area for the player to explore. Here is where Houdin believes that the priests and nobles would have exited the pyramid after the burial ceremony.
So this must be on the other side of one of the entrances to the outside. Just about to say, I think I'm going to have to Assassin's Creed my way up here. There we go. There we go. I do have a torch, I believe. Yeah.
Many theories regarding the construction of the Great Pyramid rely on the usage of external ramps. However, Houdin believes an external ramp would have been too steep for the upper portion of the pyramid. This is why he posits that there were two ramps. An external ramp for about half of the height of the pyramid, which then became an internal ramp for the second half.
I'd be curious to know, like, look up this Jean-Pierre Houdin on the internet and see just how widely accepted these views are.
Houdin's theory states that this internal ramp followed the sides of the pyramid in an ascending spiral pattern. A notch discovered in the edge of the Great Pyramid, known as Bob's Room, seems to support this theory. Located at the corners of each edge of the pyramid, these large rooms would have allowed workers to turn the stone by 90 degrees, allowing them to continue the ascent. The team chose to create rooms such as this one, bringing Houdin's hypothesis to life.
So this is Bob's room, I guess. And yeah, you can sort of see, so basically we're following the track of that internal ramp that they're talking about that would have been used to build the pyramid. It's over here.
This long corridor was the first section of the ascending internal ramp. Through it, the blocks used to build the Great Pyramid would have been carefully moved upward and then turned at each edge of the pyramid in order to continue their ascent. Though the team only created the main ramp for the game, Houdin posits that this ramp had two levels, allowing workers to return safely to the bottom thanks to an additional corbelled upper section.
Ah! All these cobwebs though. So I kind of like that it's not just the history stuff, but also you're getting, I guess, a developer commentary to some extent, where you're seeing what the development team, the choices they made to present this.
According to Houdin, the start of the inner ramp was located at the base of the southeastern face of the pyramid. This location would have been the junction point of the external and internal ramps. Below us, workers would have built the lower part of the pyramid with the external ramp before eventually switching to the internal ramp for the middle and upper sections of the pyramid. At that time in the process, they could have reused the material of the external ramp to fill the center of the pyramid, hauling the stones in through the internal ramp.
I remember in school when we studied this that we did learn they used a huge ramp, and I remember in class one day we were sitting there and I don't remember exactly who it was, but someone did question how it was possible that they got the ramp up higher and higher, and the teacher didn't really have a good answer. And she was all like, well, I mean, that's something we can all sort of, try and research and investigate. I don't remember if we ever actually did. But yeah, it's an interesting idea now. Where are we? We are there. We've done all of those tours. There's Caffrey's funerary complex there. We should probably do that one, hey, because the Sphinx is, of course, a good one. So yeah, let's go down and have a gander at the Sphinx. How does that sound? What are these? There's other pyramid-based ones here. There's Manicuri's funerary complex and Caffrey's funerary complex, which is that one there. These are the three smaller pyramids. You can see them on the map here that they were talking about. But yeah, we'll go do this one with the Sphinx. Huh. The Iliad was the most well-known work of fiction of its time. Huh. Didn't know that. That last tip didn't stay on the screen for very long, but it talked about how the pyramids were the tallest buildings in the world for a very long time. Pretty much up until about the 19th century, I think. Yeah, we're going to do the Sphinx, because the Sphinx is really cool, and it's presented in the game really neatly.
Welcome to the Riddles of the Sphinx.
Also, you'll notice before we get started that the Sphinx, the face, has a nose.
A sphinx was originally meant to be a personification of the king. The human head, wearing pharaonic regalia, was fused with the body of a lion, thus sharing the qualities the powerful animal possessed, namely its power, the swiftness of its attack, and its majestic authority. By these very virtues, it was also considered a symbol of protection. Unsurprisingly, statues of sphinxes could be found along the dromas, protectors of the path taken by the gods to reach the temples. Over the centuries, enthusiasts and historians alike have wondered, who built the Sphinx? For what purpose? And who does it represent? These questions remain unanswered. Several theories do exist, however, some more credible than others. One theory supposes that Jedefre chose to pay homage to his father Khufu by building the Great Sphinx of Giza. The stone temple on the eastern face of the Sphinx would have been added later on by his brother and successor, Khafre, in order to strengthen the divine worship of their father. It would be the first Egyptian temple oriented with the sun.
And again, it's just like this well-known object that's so ancient we still don't fully understand a lot of why it was created.
Another theory suggests that the Sphinx was built by Khafre and was meant to represent him. The arguments to support this hypothesis are based on the fact that the limestone beds used for the main work of the Temple of the Sphinx are geographically and architecturally similar to the Valley Temple of Khafre. Some believe that Khufu himself built the Sphinx, which was later finished under his successors, Jedefre and Khafre. These arguments are based on the stylistics of the engraving, the typology of the nemes, and the absence of a beard at the time of construction.
Oh, that's right, yeah, because that beard part was actually added later, or it's believed it was added later.
While ancient Egypt as a whole leaves a rather monochrome vision of its monuments and statuary, it is vital to understand that in ancient times, absolutely everything was painted. The sun, eating away at the pigments of the colors, the sand, the climate, and the implacable impact of time, unfortunately destroyed the glorious colors of the Sphinx of Giza. Documents from an Arab Egyptologist of the 12th century, Abd al-Latif al-Baghdadi, indicate that traces of red were still visible in his time. Today, however, the only color that remains are traces of red close to the ears of the Sphinx, as well as hints of blue and yellow on the nemes, traditional colors for that type of headdress. The pigments for the color red were man-made, obtained by mixing different products such as clay, quartz sand, and very finely crushed hematite.
Gee, you gotta wonder where they got the blue from, given how hard blue pigment is to make. But yeah, no, that's you can see it there on that statue in front of the Sphinx there, so which actually has the is that the jewel crown, or it's got the red and the white crowns.
Red had a strong symbolism in ancient Egypt. It was both the color of life and the color of death. It could represent the sands of the desert or the brilliance of the sun. Red was also associated with the god Seth, vengeful and destructive. The Egyptian word for red, Deshur, is also the word which was used to signify the desert, or the royal crown of Lower Egypt. In art, red was also the color used to paint the bodies of men, while yellow was used for women. It is possible that there were also color restoration efforts during the Saite period about 600 years before Cleopatra's rule, as indicated by notes on the inventory stele, discovered in 1858 by Auguste Mariette. It is because of this that the team made the decision to display it with its full range of colors, even though the Sphinx's colors would have likely faded by Cleopatra's time.
So even by the time of, wow. Again, just an indicator of how ancient these things really are.
Dating from the 4th dynasty, approximately 2600 to 2500 BCE, the Great Sphinx of Giza is the oldest and largest sphinx that we know of. Carved from a natural limestone outcrop, the Sphinx measures 19.8 meters in height, 73.2 meters in length, and 14 meters in width.
What I thought was interesting when I first came across it in-game is that it's actually quite a lot smaller than the pyramids. I don't know why I ever thought it was as big as those things, but for some reason I got in my head it was quite a lot larger than it actually is. And yeah, that's, I guess, what's that? Side view from 1853.
In order to bring polish to the imposing monument, several blocks of limestone were added after the initial construction phase. Since then, there have been numerous attempts at preservation. The polish present in the game integrates some aspects of modern restoration attempts. The team made this choice to present a more iconic version of the Sphinx of Giza to the player. Today, the Sphinx is called the Terrifying One. This appellation is translated from its Arabic name, Abu al-Hal, which in turn was derived from Baluba in Coptic.
I suppose it's photos like this that made me think the Sphinx was a lot bigger than it really is. I mean, not to say it's small, but cool, we get to Assassin's Creed our way up here. Nice. Out there. There we go.
The Sphinx as a whole was carved in situ from a natural stone promontory. Its head was built in a limestone peak of the Mukattam Plate, and the body was sculpted in the underlying rock layer where it is located. The degradation of the Sphinx is due in particular to wind erosion and the different quality of limestone used in its construction. The level of sodium contained in the groundwater which abuts the stone is also a contributing factor.
See, I remember reading that, like, at one point in its discovery, the Sphinx was almost completely hidden from view. Like, I think only the head was visible at some point before they started really exploring the area in the 19th century and bringing it back, fully exposing the rest of it.
The natural bedrock is seen through the oblique natural strata of the Sphinx's body that are similar to the surrounding limestone.
Yeah. And again, you can see how buried it is there. That's from 1909.
Since antiquity, people have always believed there was a hidden tomb deep within the Sphinx. It is thought that attempts to plunder the Sphinx began as far back as the First Intermediate period. Since then, numerous attempts to pierce the Sphinx's secrets have been carried out, leaving indelible scars upon the monument. 12 meters long and cut during pharaonic times, another entrance in the back of the Sphinx aroused curiosity. Although Thutmose IV attempted to seal it off, it was possibly reopened by treasure hunters. It was rediscovered by Howard Vyse and mapped more recently by Mark Lehner. This entrance at the back of the Sphinx leads to different cavities of a few meters each, in directions going inside the statue's body and under the surface. The team has used this opportunity to extrapolate a little more.
I haven't actually been inside the Sphinx in the game yet, so I didn't know about that entrance, so that'll be fun for when I actually get up to that part of the game. But yeah, I haven't actually... I am actually in the area at the moment. This is sort of the part of the game I'm up to. But I haven't really done a lot.
While there have been
Yeah.
no major discoveries pertaining to the Sphinx of Giza in recent years, theories and hypotheses continue to emerge. Without validation provided by archaeological sources, however, they remain unsubstantiated.
Just a sec, guys. Just got to answer a text message. Okay. There's 22 stops on this one. Jeez.
The first of the main theories as to the Sphinx of Giza's meaning posits that the Sphinx was originally a massive representation of the god Anubis. Its principal arguments are that the head of the Sphinx is disproportionate compared to the size of its body. The second theory believes that the representation of two sphinxes on the stela of Thutmose IV would indicate that another stone sphinx had existed on the site itself, possibly even in paired symmetry on the other side of the Nile. However, neither of these theories can be verified in any way. Several scientific projects using new technologies have been put in place in the past decades. The most important was led by Mark Lehner and his team, who specialize in the study and survey of the Giza Plateau, including the Sphinx site. The mapping made it possible to see the materials used to construct the Sphinx, analyze the different layers of erosion, and figure out the most fragile areas to protect. After a few attempts at giving the Sphinx artistic proportions, the team instead decided to use photogrammetry mapping to faithfully reproduce the proportions of the Sphinx.
So that's basically where you take a bunch of photos of it and then map them into 3D and do a bunch of stuff. It's how a lot of racing games map their racetracks, actually.
What the Sphinx of Giza represented during its construction and how the Sphinx was perceived by the Egyptians of the New Kingdom are two very different matters. Originally a representation of the king imbued with the power of the lion, the Sphinx was eventually viewed as a direct representation of the most divine. It is theorized that kings of the New Kingdom believed that the Sphinx of Giza was the one who recognized and legitimized the ruler of Egypt. Thus, despite the fact the Sphinx of Giza was partially buried under the sand during his reign, Amenhotep II knew that the monument was of great importance.
There you go. Oh. But remember, there's actually sort of a second back out sometimes that you got to do.
Amenhotep II built a second temple dedicated for the Sphinx as Horemakhet to pay homage to Khufu and Khafre, his predecessors. It became a common habit for this dynasty to spend time with their royal courts at the Sphinx. Its sanctuary became known as Setepet, the Chosen.
So that's a scarab with Amenhotep II featuring a sphinx on the top there. You can see it. Cool.
Egyptologist Mark Lehner believed that Amenhotep II built a statue of himself anchored between the paws of the Sphinx, likely to legitimize his reign, alongside a stela found by Salim Hassan. Many other pharaohs of this dynasty, such as Tutankhamun and Ramses II, also left marks of their passage in a similar fashion, sometimes even stripping the stones of nearby temples and pyramids to do so. Amenhotep II's son and successor, Thutmose IV, was a frequent offender.
It's kind of funny how, like, we look at all this as static, and, you know, once it was built, that was it. But in reality, of course, it changed constantly, and of course, you know, these things, even when these things like 1,000, 1,500 years old, there was no desire to preserve them. They all existed, but obviously the pyramids were so big, you weren't going to preserve them. But of course, the Sphinx itself wasn't going to get preserved either. So,
While sleeping between the Sphinx's paws, the future Thutmose IV saw in a dream the god Horamakhet proclaiming his coming accession on the throne of the two lands. This was, of course, on the condition that he remove all of the sand covering the Sphinx, which stood guard as the personification of the god, and should thus never be engulfed by the sands of the desert.
yeah, and this photo actually shows you what the Sphinx looked like in the 19th century, where it was mostly covered by sand.
The 15-ton dream stela built by Thutmose IV to commemorate his dream was discovered by an Italian Egyptologist, Giovanni Battista Caviglia, in 1818, when he undertook the task of freeing the Sphinx from the sand, which had, yet again, covered it. Caviglia was looking for an entrance into the structure of the Sphinx, but instead he discovered an open-air chapel and stelas between the paws. Ashes from a ceremony were still present. Protected by sand, they quite possibly were from the last ceremonies in Roman times.
That's really amazing. They've sort of managed to stay there for so long. Hey, it's a cat. There's a lot of cats in this game.
That same year, Caviglia discovered fragments of the Sphinx's beard that had probably been added during the New Kingdom. If many of these pieces are held by museums in Cairo, a fragment is displayed at the British Museum, along with a piece of the uraeus that was on the Sphinx's headdress. It is believed this fragment of beard was possibly kept in place thanks to the statue of Amenhotep II, which was supposed to be located under the head of the Sphinx. A popular cultural legend purports that the nose of the Sphinx of Giza was lost during the time of Napoleon Bonaparte to the cannon fire of French soldiers in training. However, engravings from before the time of that campaign already depicted the Sphinx without a nose, indicating that it had been removed before the French campaign.
Yeah, I remember someone debunking that for me when I was a kid, that the nose was lost long before Napoleon saw it.
The most plausible hypothesis is based on the research of the German historian Ulrich Harman. During the 1980s, Harman compiled medieval sources written by Arab authors. In doing so, he discovered that the Sphinx was once perceived as a favorable omen, a deity supporting sediment-nurturing floods and crops. Around 1378, a Sufi by the name of Muhammad Sa'im al-Dar could not stand this vision of the monument, and in an iconoclastic act, broke the nose of the Sphinx. According to the texts, he was then hanged and burned between the legs of the Sphinx for his crime.
Well, there you go. So that's the riddles of the Sphinx. And we've got time for a couple more. Let's take a look at the map, see what's around here. So that'll be an overview of the necropolis, and that'll be a look at Khafre's funerary complex, so that pyramid. What else have we got here that would be interesting? So we looked at Alexandria at the start of this. We should have a look at Memphis. We should have a look at the Red Pyramid. Okay. That's a short one. What's that? Neutron. Ah, okay. Right, yeah. So, the Bent Pyramid. Yes. That could be interesting. And then there's Sneferu's Pyramid. Oh jeez, I forgot how big this game is. It's a huge game, by the way, guys. It's definitely one of the biggest ones. Definitely the biggest Assassin's Creed game, I think. Like this feels like it dwarfs. Might bring up the this menu. We'll have a look. What we're going to do. More pyramid stuff? Or should we look at something else? Should we go back to Alexandria? Should we just wander around Egypt? should I do? How about we have... Let's have a look at some of the Alexandria stuff ones, because Alexandria is like the main city in the game. In fact, I don't think this would be complete without us taking a look at the Great Library. I think we have to do the Great Library, guys. Given that it's a wonder that you can build in Civilization, I think we have to do the Great Library. So the Great Library is actually a place you go to fairly early on in the game.
It's not the heat that gets you. Well, it might, if the miles and miles of endless barren desert without water don't first.
Okay.
Welcome to the Great Library of Alexandria. Near the district of royal palaces and within the Moseon was the most famous library of all antiquity. The Library of Alexandria was built to house all of human knowledge. At its pinnacle, the library was believed to contain over 700,000 parchments.
That's quite a lot. And that's from that drawing we were looking at before.
Throughout the centuries, fires and wars between Christianity and paganism destroyed the library, leaving nothing behind. The loss of the building, and more importantly, its vast collection, is immeasurable. As no descriptions are available, the team's rendition of the Library of Alexandria was inspired by the visuals of the Library of Chalcis at Ephesus.
So this is what that library looks like, and this was, yeah, okay. And that explains that frontage and all that kind of stuff. So I imagine it would have been a similar style to this. I was thinking actually that I think the version you see in Civilization 6 looks a bit different to that. It's been a little while since I've built the Great Library in Civilization 6, so I don't quite remember what it looks like, but yeah.
While much of the collection was purchased at the government's expense, the library also obtained books through other means. Any books owned by travelers coming through the city were seized to be copied for the library. The copy would then be returned to the owner, and the original entered into the library's collection.
This is a concept of what the library would have what they wanted the library to look like inside, so it's just concept art. That's cool. In fact, one of the quests that first takes you here in the game is actually a local poet having something he'd written confiscated.
Alexandria offered unrivaled intellectual and cultural attractions. Eminent scholars from Athens, Rhodes, and other Greek centers traveled to the city to learn and engage with other free thinkers. Both the Moseon and the library were at the center of groundbreaking ideas and creative expression. The great minds of antiquity were usually well versed in many disciplines, which were often associated to specific schools of thought. The Peripatetics, the Stoics, and the Cynics were among the most well-known schools of the time. It is clear that Alexandria lived up to its fundamental role as a city for intellectuals, nurturing many great minds whose impact reverberates through our modern world.
And you know that just by the fact that we still use some of those words today. We still use the word stoic, we still use the word cynic. The meanings have shifted a little bit.
Hypatia of Alexandria was a Greek mathematician, philosopher, astronomer, and inventor. Though born in Greece, she eventually migrated to Alexandria, like many great minds of the time. It is there that she became the head of the Neoplatonist school of Alexandria. From most accounts, she was highly respected by her fellow Alexandrians, both as a teacher and a philosopher. With her death, the age of great ancient scientific discoveries came to an end.
And Hypatia is one of those historical figures you tend to hear a lot about, but you get to see her there in statue form, and yeah, no, she's a very important figure. She's worth looking up on
Callimachus
Wikipedia.
was born in Cyrene and educated in Athens. After his studies, he moved to Alexandria to work in the Great Library. A poet and a critic, he strongly rejected the epic format of Homeric poems, and instead fervently supported a shorter, more judiciously formulated style of poetry. His epigrams and elegiac poems were emulated by later poets. His work was extremely popular, second only to Homer's own works.
I really love the atmosphere of this building too. It's a fun place to visit in the game. But yeah, as I was saying, they were talking about the confiscations before, and one of the first quests you get in this game is a poet who's written a poem, and he's outside the library, and the library guy wants to confiscate it so he can copy it. And the poet's like, "No, I don't want my poem copied or anything like that." And your goal is to sort of resolve that issue.
It was in Alexandria that mathematician Euclid, the father of geometry, wrote the Elements, laying out the foundational work of what would become modern algebra and number theory. Euclidean geometry would become one of the most influential systems in the evolution of mathematics.
So, if you've ever wondered who the bloke responsible for Euclidean geometry and who you're railing against when you make non-Euclidean geometry is, it's this guy. Sheds a tear every time someone plays the Evil Within too.
How do you calculate the circumference of the Earth? With a camel, 2 sticks, and shadows cast by the sun. This is what Eratosthenes of Cyrene described in his principal work, Geography, while he was director of the Great Library of Alexandria. He is credited for the invention of the armillary sphere around 250 BCE.
Yeah, and again, that sort of shows that even back then they knew the world was round. Speaking of the sphere,
the earliest known and most complete armillary sphere of antiquity was the Meteoroscopion of Alexandria, with an imposing 9 rings compared to the 3 or 4 of most other astrolabes. Known as the zodiac Krikatoi amongst the Greeks, the Meteoroscopion was used to determine the location of celestial bodies around the Earth. Every self-respecting astronomer of antiquity would have sought to use this tool to better understand the celestial movements.
and again, right there, there's a round central Earth. I mean, the idea that people thought the Earth was flat back then is so ridiculous. Although this one's actually from 1705 apparently, so it's not a rip. So it's, yeah, obviously inspired by that one. But if you look in the middle there, you'll see round Earth. Oh, I can interact with it. Okay, just a little bit more detail. Okay, cool. I didn't realise that was a thing.
Pythagoras of Samos was a well-known and respected philosopher and mathematician. He is best known for the Pythagorean theorem. However, there is proof that the theorem existed in Babylonia and India long before Pythagoras was born, casting some doubts as to who exactly originated the theorem.
That Pythagoras taking credit for other people's work. Geez, that's, I was going to say that's a fairly, 1463. Yeah, so that's the Great Library, and like I said, it's a really cool place. The astrolabes and everything like that. What else can we do while we're around and wandering? I can check my phone. Gladiator Arena. Actually, that's not a bad place. Is there a tour there? There is a tour there. So that... Oh, that's not a gladiator arena. That's an amphitheater. Oh, but there was one, wasn't there? That's the introduction. I don't really want to do introduction. There isn't... There doesn't seem to be a specific tour of... this amphitheater. There might be, however. Now that I think about it, there is too. We'll go over here and have a look at the Hippodrome, which is actually another area I haven't been into yet. So that's an interesting fact about granite, and the fact that they carved that stuff out of it. Granite is about the hardest rock you can think of to carve. Like, granite is, like, the solidest of solid rock. So... The Hippodrome. It's only 3 stations, so we'll do this one.
Welcome to the Hippodrome of Alexandria. The main hippodrome of the city was called the Legeon, in honor of Lagos, the ancestor of the Ptolemies. Alexandrians were great lovers of horse racing. They were fascinated by the rivalry of these races, the agon, as it was said at that time, that every competition brought. It was a struggle for glory.
So basically, Alexandria was the Melbourne of its time.
The most important chariot race was the Tethrapon. Using 4 horses with the quickest harness to the front right, the charioteer would race for 12 laps, with sharp turns at either end of the hippodrome. The victors were crowned with garlands of olive and received prize money, but the most sought-after reward was to be acclaimed by the works of poets, such as Callimachus and Pindar.
Also, can I just point out how goddamn terrifying that sounds? Like, seriously? Here we go.
Ye hymns that rule the lyre, what god, what hero, aye, and what man shall we loudly praise? Verily Zeus is the lord of Pisa, and Heracles established the Olympic festival, while Theron must be proclaimed by reason of his victorious chariot with its 4 horses. Theron, who is just in his regard for guests, and who is the bulwark of Akragas, the choicest flower of an auspicious line of sires, whose city towers on high, bringing wealth and glory to crown their native merits.
I guess that's the kind of poetry they're talking about. Oh. I was sort of hoping for something a bit more in-depth than that. Like, something that actually goes in here. Although, actually, I don't think you can even get in to the main hippodrome area without actually being part of a race.
Take your time. I'll wait. It's not like ancient Egypt is going anywhere.
Really? Really? I totally didn't realize until just now that it's just got, like, people talking on it. Anyway, where are we? We're at the hippodrome. What's that over there? Wine in ancient Egypt. We should probably do that one. Oh, that'd be really interesting. Let's do this one. I think I actually like finding them on the map and deciding which one seems interesting that way rather than using that menu.
Welcome to Jean-Francois Champollion. Between the 5th century CE and the Renaissance, knowledge of hieroglyphs was entirely lost. Many enthusiasts tackled the challenge of deciphering the language with little success. Some groundwork was made with various researchers identifying names and some grammatical structure, and confirming that cartouches were markers for royal names. They were still missing a critical piece of information that would eventually be revealed thanks to the discovery of the Rosetta Stone.
Yep, the Rosetta Stone is a very important thing. And like, how much it advanced our knowledge of this is just impossible to understate.
The Rosetta Stone was found in 1799 by Bouchard, a soldier in Napoleon's army.
There it is.
The stela dates from 196
They put it in the
BCE, written in ancient Egyptian and Greek with 3 scripts: hieroglyphics, Demotic, and Greek alphabet. Following the defeat of Napoleon Bonaparte in 1801, the English took possession of the stone. It has been at the British Museum since 1802 and remains the most visited object of the museum to date.
I imagine it would be, actually. But that's it. That's it right there. I didn't even realise that was in the game. I'd never actually been into this area in the main game. So I didn't realise. But that's really cool. They just put it in the game like that. I suppose it makes sense. I think it does date from around this time.
The first translation was of the Greek section only in 1803. It detailed a decree of Pharaoh Ptolemy V, reminding the citizens that their pharaoh had led Egypt to prosperity. It was fully translated 20 years after by Jean-François Champollion, who was working with a facsimile.
Yeah, so it does date from this era.
Through his studies of the stone, Champollion was able to make a critical observation that would unlock the whole mystery: that hieroglyphics were not only ideograms, but also phonograms. Hieroglyphs consist of phonetic glyphs, single characters, and logograms. Essentially, they are a combination of phonetics, alphabet, and full words, which in total form a language.
I guess that's not entirely unlike, I want to say Chinese, but I was actually thinking more Japanese, where you have an alphabet, but you also have ideographic images. You have kanji, you have hiragana as well, but you don't have the I guess you don't have the logograms, I suppose. I should talk to my linguist friend about this. He'd be interested in this. I've got a friend who's a trained linguist who know more than I would about it.
While studying the stone, Champollion realized that there was a difference in the number of hieroglyphic characters in relation to the number of Greek characters for the same word. This led him to believe that hieroglyphs must have phonetic characteristics. This was the first step to unlocking the Rosetta Stone's secrets.
Okay, let's keep going. Sorry, I just had to answer a text message. That's fine.
To prove this theory, Champollion began identifying Egyptian rulers' names and then compared their phonetic pronunciation to the Greek version. For example, Cheops had been the Greek name given by ancient chroniclers to the owner of the Great Pyramid, Khufu.
Okay. Let's take a look at that picture while we're here too. Turns out I got a bunch of text messages all at once just then, so that's fine.
The next step for Champollion was to confirm that his approach was verifiable by using the Philae obelisk as an additional reference. Engraved in the obelisk are 2 inscriptions in Egyptian hieroglyphs and Greek. Once he confirmed the names of Ptolemy and Cleopatra within these texts and confirmed the same phonetic patterns as on the Rosetta Stone, Champollion knew he was on the right track.
This is actually kind of fascinating about how they actually cracked the Rosetta Stone and figured out. And I mean, given how important that was in understanding ancient Egypt, I mean, without it, we may never have been able, like, they may never have been able to understand enough to build this game around it, you know.
Champollion had already mastered several ancient languages when he took on deciphering the Rosetta Stone. He used his knowledge of Coptic to identify the solar disk hieroglyph on the obelisk as the phonetic translation of Ra. Further translation only strengthened his conclusion. Egyptian hieroglyphs encompass the alphabet in both phonetics and determinative ways, which means that the symbol represents the word itself.
Yeah, so it is kind of like Chinese, I guess. Which is an example of that type of language now, where you have symbols that represent entire words, and actually now I think about Chinese, those same symbols can also represent phonemes as well, can't they? It's not just words that they represent. This is a really new place. What is this place? It's Heraklion. Okay. Ah, there you go. I've never actually been here in the game because I don't have. Well, I just haven't got up to this part. I think this is one of the higher level areas in the base game. What's that over there? Flora of ancient Egypt. That's something over this side. We haven't done much over here yet. Quatara Depression, number of sessions. That's not very big. So Siwa, this is the area you first. This is the area you first encounter. Well, here's some more on hieroglyphs, so maybe we should follow that. Yeah, we'll do that. We'll do some more hieroglyph stuff. Here we go. Yeah, that's actually something worth noting too. The pyramids were all built within about a 600-ish year period of each other, and then no more were built, and like that's 2,000 years before this game was set. So, okay, ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. I think we'll make this the last one. I'm gonna have to go to bed soon, so we'll make this the last one.
Welcome to Ancient Egyptian Hieroglyphs. Hieroglyphics were used as sacred writing, appearing on monuments, statues, and sacred papyrus texts. The earliest symbols that resemble hieroglyphs were on pottery dating back to 4000 BCE. This stylized form of signs and drawings was the only writing used from its ancient origins to the end of pharaonic history. Ancient Egyptians referred to hieroglyphs as the writing of the gods.
It's kind of incredible just for how long this writing was used. I mean, you think about all the language writing systems we use today, and again, I know I mentioned it a few times, but the oldest one I can think of that's still in current use might be Chinese. Is Sanskrit that old? I don't remember.
Considered a difficult language, it was intended for pharaohs, nobility, and priests, and meant to be used in ceremonies, within tombs, and for government records. Since few Egyptians were able to read the ancient hieroglyphs, the mythological aura around the language was persistent, even in their own culture.
And of course, what's interesting about that with regards to the hieroglyphs is that they have this very visual appearance as well. So you would have seen them as just pictures without fully understanding their meaning.
The structure of hieroglyphs offers insight into Egyptian culture, not just in what the translations say, but in the structure of the symbols themselves. They were found on tomb walls, on sarcophagi, on statues, and on pottery, and were meticulously recorded in countless ancient papyri. In many temples, priests would perform rituals and daily offerings. These were accompanied by hieroglyphs used as spells. In tomb paintings, the hieroglyphs are represented with formulas to recite. These spoken words were meant to be spells which would allow the deceased to benefit from the offerings for all eternity. Spells and offerings were also written for the living, to enhance medicines and cure illnesses. The most famous of ancient Egyptian documents is the Book of the Dead. Written in hieroglyphs and hieratic texts, it depicts important spells and rituals. These spells were intended to ensure a smooth transition from life to death and allow the deceased to safely navigate the perils of the afterlife.
There's actually a quest in the game where you have to recover the Book of the Dead for someone, or a copy of the Book of the Dead, because apparently it was something that everyone had copies of.
Even after it was deciphered, the reading of hieroglyphs remained difficult at times due to the many directions in which they can be read. Depending on the orientation of the signs, hieroglyphs can be read left to right, right to left, horizontally or vertically, though never bottom to top.
I guess they hadn't really standardized on the direction. Jeez, imagine if they'd had computers back then. They had to implement all of that in the computer system. Boy, that would make it hard.
A clue on which way to read is to first notice which direction the figurative signs are facing. If a pictogram is looking to the right, then the reader is meant to start from the right and read towards the figure. Column text on a papyrus begins from the right, then goes top to bottom for each column.
So basically, what it's saying there is you can see that figure on the left of that, on the right of that if it's coming out of the screen at you. But you can see that the large figure there, and basically that's your indication of which direction to read, I guess.
Text written on tomb walls resembles the structure of a page from a comic book. The text can be placed in front, behind, or above the character, and its symbols look in the same direction as the character. Another clue is that the name of a god or hieroglyphs meaning gods or kings are always written before the descriptive text.
So all these larger pictures you can see on these things, like you can see these images here, they're all part of it as well. They're not just there for decoration. They're actually there to help you read the hieroglyphs, which is really incredible the way that works.
Compared to alphabetical languages, Egyptian hieroglyphs have more symbols. Confronted with the absence of vowels, the Egyptians invented a category of signs. When placed at the end of words, these signs help inform its meaning. For instance, a drawing of a lion will refer to a lion and also relate to the abstract concept of a lion as something dangerous or powerful.
Yeah, and again, it's something you see in Chinese too, where the symbols have a direct literal meaning, but also a more figurative meaning as well. Whoa.
Middle Egyptian hieroglyphs contained a little more than 700 signs. By the end of the Greco-Roman period, there were 10,000 signs. Egyptologist Sir Alan Gardner created a list classifying common hieroglyphic signs and their variants.
And again, like Chinese, there are a lot of symbols.
Ancient Egyptian languages have many similarities with Asian and African languages. They have evolved in similar ways to the various forms of written Egyptian. These languages belong to the Hamito-Semitic group. There were 5 clear evolutions in the Egyptian language, each with their own distinctive structure. These languages are known as Old Egyptian, Middle Egyptian, Late Egyptian, Demotic, and Coptic. Coptic is the only living language that allows linguists to define the vowel structure and to distinguish different dialects.
And of course, we have a similar thing with English, where we have Old English, Middle English, and Modern English. But obviously, English hasn't been around for anywhere near as long as Egyptian was.
While hieroglyphs and hieratic script give us an idea as to how the ancient Egyptian language was structured and written, the way it was spoken is still up for debate. The team opted for English as the spoken language, with the characters using ancient Egyptian and Greek words and accents. The language that is spoken in the background by the crowds is largely based on Sir Alan Gardner's Egyptian grammar. To help resurrect a dead language, we consulted Egyptologists and dialogue coaches to establish our target sound, and cast actors with Arabic, Hebraic, and African backgrounds to bring the game to life.
Yeah, because I suppose that's a really interesting thing. We don't know what ancient Egyptian actually sounded like, because of course no one spoke it for a very long period of time. I mean, we only, the last 200, 300 years, is when we really started to learn how to read it. And obviously there's no native speakers, so we don't know. It's the same actually with Latin, because Latin was never fully spoken.
After Alexander the Great's arrival in Egypt and the establishment of his reign, Greek became the language used by the governing bodies. The inability to read hieroglyphs caused resentment among the Greek population. It's from this tension that the Rosetta Stone was created.
Yeah. But yeah, as I was saying, we don't fully know what Latin was supposed to sound like. I mean, we can speculate that it probably sounds a little bit like what modern Italian sounds like, but we don't know 100% exactly how it was pronounced. And that's true even of things like Old English.
The spread of Christianity ended pharaonic culture and resulted in the destruction of its pagan monuments. This also marked the end of hieroglyphic writing and understanding.
Yeah. There we go. Head back out of here. We are going to leave it there for tonight, though. It's been a fun little exploration. I really like this mode. It's a really cool addition to what is definitely one of the best Assassin's Creed games. And just the exploration of it, wandering around. I mean, I was mostly focusing on using those guided tours because I felt that might have been the best way to just give some content. But you can see here what they were talking about, those sitting animals up there that are somewhat Sphinx-like, I guess. But yeah, this is that whole thing with that whole thing with the tours and everything like that. But of course, you can just wander around and have a look too. Wow, look at those statues. Exactly, aren't we again? We are over in Siwa. Yeah, okay. Because you tend not to spend a huge amount of time in this part of the game early on. But yeah. Yeah, and that's right, because there's probably some stuff here relating to the Romans and things like that. Yeah, Coronacca. This is an area I haven't been to yet in the main game, so as much as I'd like to, I don't really want to have a good look at that at any point right now. Oh, but there's a thing on Roman aqueducts. Oh, they're interesting. That's so interesting. Oh, this whole mode's really cool. I really like what they've done with this. Something different. Bit of different content to do. Oh, maybe we should do that one. We're going to do this one, then we're going to call it night. One more. It's a short one. Oh, there you go. There's an actual gameplay hint. Okay, so this is, domesticated animals of Egypt. Let's have a look.
Welcome to Domesticated Animals of Ancient Egypt.
Conveniently, there's two of them right there.
Agriculture and domesticated livestock were introduced 6,000 years ago. Archaeologists have found traces of cattle, donkeys, pigs, and dogs. Dromedary are thought to have been introduced during the Persian invasion.
Donkeys, cows. I don't see a dromedary there. Also, look at the horns on these cows.
Pets were deeply cherished in ancient Egypt. Many illustrations of children often include a pet in the depiction.
No. It's a cat. Some very strange looking sheep there. See these huge beards they've got on them? Here we go.
One of ancient Egypt's most iconic animals, the cat, wasn't adopted into their daily life until the Middle Kingdom. Since they were so highly capable of killing snakes and rodents, cats were present throughout every period. However, they only became pets sometime during the Middle Kingdom. Prince Thutmose, son of Amenhotep III, had his cat Tamu laid to rest in its own sarcophagi.
They really love their cats. And I suppose, as pointed out, I mean, cats were really good at catching snakes and rats, both of which were huge problems, you know, like, chickens. You know, they were huge problems, so cats, you know, that's why they got domesticated.
The earliest reference to dogs dates back to 5000 BCE. They were popular pets, as they helped hunters and protected herds. They were closely linked to Anubis, the jackal-headed god. Baboons, monkeys, and even falcons were tamed as pets. Each was mummified and buried with as much ceremony as any family member.
There you go. Okay, that's where we're going to leave it. Geez, they're weird-looking dogs though, aren't they? But I suppose that would be moderately correct. A lot of what we recognise as a dog these days has only existed for the last couple of hundred years. And there are certain species of dogs that were popular, you know, even just a century or two ago that you can't even find anymore, like water dogs and things like that, that have just become almost, well, I don't want to say extinct, but certainly as a breed they don't really exist anymore, so I suppose they are extinct. Anyway, we're going to leave it there. That was Assassin's Creed's Discovery Mode. That was really fun. I really had a lot of fun doing that. I'm going to leave it there for tonight, and we'll come back. Get out of here. Oh, right. You can actually... Oh, I didn't realise you could actually choose what character you're playing as, so I can be Julius Caesar. I didn't even realise that was a possibility. I never even looked at what the other options were on the menu. I could have just been wandering around Cleopatra, or a more modern historian, modern day mentor, father of... Oh, he's an Assassin's Creed character, father of Desmond Miles. And she's the girl in... of course, because she's the girl in the real life. But and then it's just, yeah. Okay, so we were just Aya then. I didn't even select that. I didn't realise that was selectable. And these are actor. Oh, right, yeah, the actors, yeah. So basically any of the NPCs that are around. Okay. Yeah, because I knew I was A, but I didn't realise I actually had the ability to select everything. Passport, what's that? Oh, right, so this is like showing you what you've completed and how much. Okay, that's cool. A timeline of ancient Egypt. So this gives you an idea of just how long these kingdoms lasted. So Old Kingdom 2686 to 2181 BCE, so about 600 years. And then Middle Kingdom was only about 400. New Kingdom 500 after that. And then the late period, which there's this huge gap here. There's like the Alexandra the Great and the Ptolemaic era. And yeah, you can see this is ancient Egypt. And then look where this line is for the Common Era there, and where today is. And look how far back this goes. You know, like that gives you an idea of just how crazy it really is. But yeah, that was really good fun. Anyway, that was Assassin's Creed's. That was Assassin's Creed's Discovery Mode. That's excellent. That's really well done. And again, I really wish that some of the other Assassin's Creed games had done that. Anyway, I'm gonna leave it there. So thank you all for watching, and I will see you all next time.